Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Classic Comics. So, you may have heard about the recent layoffs taking place in the comic book industry, and I thought I would do a video and talk about this. If you don't know about it, so earlier this month, Valiant Entertainment announced that they were undergoing a series of layoffs. Several people were leaving the company. This was sort of sparked by a number of their top people announcing on Twitter that they were no longer with the company, and some creators, I guess, who work with the company going on Twitter and saying, I don't know what's going on. I've done work for them. I haven't been paid. I'm trying to contact the company. No one answers. I don't know, I don't even know if the company's still in business. I had a book coming out through them. I don't know if it's going to happen, that sort of thing. There's been a lot of debate about comic sales over the last few years. Some people arguing that comic book sales are declining, and they have been declining for some time. But others arguing that that's not true. Comic sales are fine, and anyone who says that comic sales are down, or then they're just full of it. Now, I think this boils down to semantics to an extent. People who say comics are dying tend to be talking about mainstream superhero comics, mainly DC and Marvel, but also including other companies such as Image, Dark Horse, IDW, and Valiant. Now, those who insist that comics are fine tend to lump sales of manga, or manga, however you say it, and young adult graphic novels in with standard comics, along with scholastic sales like to schools and libraries and that sort of thing. They lump all those in to claim that, well, you see, comic sales are fine, and those who claim otherwise are full of it. So let's just go ahead and get into this article first. So as we see here, mass layoffs leave a skeleton crew at Valiant Entertainment. One estimate suggests that only 3 or 4 staffers remain at the company. Valiant Entertainment is the latest publisher to be hit by a sudden wave of layoffs, with only a handful of employees remaining with the company and its long-term future uncertain. Sources have revealed that a number of key employees, including the majority of the editorial staff, were laid off in the first week of August as parent company DMG Entertainment pulled back on spending at the company. According to multiple sources, only a skeleton crew remains in place for the time being, with some estimates running as low as 3 employees. Now, according to sources familiar with the situation, Valiant's long-term financial situation has been in question for some time, with a number of employees, including top editors at the company, actually working on a freelance basis. Amongst the problems facing Valiant are low sales. The company's best-selling print title in April 2022, the most recent month with accurate sales estimates, was Shadow Man #8, coming in just under 5,000 copies in North America. That's just brutal. And the lack of movement on the media front following the underwhelming release of 2020's Bloodshot starring Vin Diesel, blunted by its opening coming just days before theaters shut down due to COVID restrictions. The current incarnation of Valiant Entertainment, originally founded in 1989 by former Marvel editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, began in 2012, when the company relaunched under the leadership of investor Dinesh Shamdasani. I hope I'm saying that right. In 2018, the company was acquired by DMG Entertainment, leading to the departure of the team behind the 2012 relaunch and a new editorial and executive team stepping in. Sadly, Valiant is far from the only comic company facing sudden cutbacks recently. Yes, so recently, I think back in June, I believe it was, or when was it? Maybe it was in July. Back in July, Oni Press, another comic company, also went through a series of layoffs. It was very much the same thing. There was a sudden announcement by people that they were leaving the company, creators on Twitter questioning what's going on and, what's going to happen to my book, and I don't know if I'm going to get paid, etc., with several people leaving the company. And again, it was a case of them basically cutting costs by stripping the company down to the bare bones. As we see here, Oni Press lays off 4 more top staffers in what's being described as management restructuring. Oni Press's top remaining publishing figure exits the company following layoffs. 4 more gone from Oni Press. More layoffs hit Oni Lionforge. So this is something that is starting to make its way through the comic publishing industry, it seems. So what's happening with Valiant isn't just an isolated incident. This is happening to other comic companies. Valiant is just the most high profile that's hit so far. I don't really know a whole lot about Oni, to be honest. I've never really followed them much. The main thing I know about Oni is they're the ones who are behind Scott Pilgrim. They originally published that comic, which was made into a movie back in the 2000s. But in any case, this shows that what's happening with Valiant is not an isolated incident. It's hit Oni, now it's hit Valiant. Is it going to hit other companies? I don't know. Well, let's just get into this article. Okay, so Valiant Entertainment's second death mirrors its first. Valiant is on its way out. Again, the company's reboot is suffering the same corporate greed and loss of its creative leads as their predecessor. And this is a good article because it talks about the history of Valiant. I was a fan of Valiant back in the 90s. Of course, they published characters such as Dr. Solar, Magnus Robot Fighter, X-omanowar, Bloodshot, and others. Valiant Entertainment isn't doing great. There are rumors that the publication is about to take a dive. Again, many of the company's employees are unceremoniously leaving after a series of poor choices regarding their talent. As a result, Valiant's future as a publisher is once again highly dubious. As morbid as it may sound, fans of Valiant's classic incarnation should be feeling a disturbing sense of déjà vu. The original Valiant comics died under very similar circumstances, with the creative head being ousted to make way for people who couldn't have cared less about comics or their universes. Used as a simple IP farm, the Valiant of old went out with a pathetic whimper amid a readership that had long since stopped caring. Now the same fate is seemingly befalling the rebooted Valiant, and this time its death may be permanent. Founded in 1989, Valiant was the creation of former Marvel editor-in-chief Jim Shooter and his business partner Steve Masarski. It initially floundered amid releases of low-quality wrestling comics and similarly ill-conceived adaptations of Nintendo video games. Then Valiant struck gold when Shooter rebooted Magnus Robot Fighter, a science fiction comic book by publisher Gold Key from his youth. Valiant would later spin off another book focusing on the futuristic Japanese hero Rai, with this title being a precursor of things to come. Soon, several books and a crossover event titled Unity sent Valiant flying up the sales charts, but this success brought the wrong kind of attention. Jim Shooter would leave the company in 1992 when it's Triumph Capital, not Trump Capital. It's Triumph Capital. I don't know if this is some kind of innocent mistake or just a spelling mistake. I don't know, but it's Triumph Capital, not Trump Capital. Jim Shooter would leave the company in 1992. The venture capital company that got Valiant on its feet was not interested in being permanent investors. They forced Jim out and sold the company to Acclaim, which was known for its particularly poor video games in the 1990s. Acclaim had no real interest in the Valiant universe or continuing the tightly woven storytelling that Jim Shooter had started for the company, being far more curious about how Valiant could be used for intellectual properties to adapt as video games. This actually resulted in some pretty good products, including the 2 Shadow Man games and the Turok titles. Unfortunately, the comic side of things had sunken hard and fast. Acclaim had rebooted the comics in the mid-90s, with characters such as X-omanowar and Ninjak being heavily altered, for the worst in most fans' opinions. The new line of comics would soon helplessly crawl into obscurity, with Acclaim actually bringing Jim Shooter back for a second Unity crossover in a vain attempt to resurrect the books. Sadly, it was too little too late, and Valiant would soon die by the early 2000s. In the mid-2000s, a group of entrepreneurs, namely Dinesh Shamdasani, purchased the rights to the Valiant properties from the shuttered Acclaim. They would finally begin producing new comics in 2012, rebooting the Valiant universe and positioning its more realistic world of superhero fiction as an independent alternative to Marvel and DC. Though never an immense success, these books were almost universally well received, with critics and fans alike lauding their takes on the superhero genre. In 2018, DMG Entertainment, a company backed by a Chinese investment firm, bought Valiant outright, clearly hungry for a quick way to gain the same monetary success as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Their acquisition led to the departure of Dinesh Shamdasani, with the whole aura around the company's books, along with their quality, changing overnight. The great storytelling and sense of cohesion were gone, as well as the planning and consistency of publication. Circumstances would hit their nadir around the time of the 2020 COVID pandemic, which saw the company ordering its creators to put their pencils down. Since then, even mainstay characters such as x-omanowar and even the popular Bloodshot have struggled to maintain ongoing books. Their former employees have made it clear that they no longer work for the company, which is supposedly being run by a skeleton crew. The situation is the exact same as it was with Acclaim, the only difference being that Acclaim at least produced some decent games, whereas all DMG has given fans is a desecrated comic line and a tepid at best Bloodshot movie. Now it's only a matter of time before Valiant closes up shop again, and the worst part is that fans could see the company's second death coming from a mile away. Yeah, they could. Because Valiant went down the same far-left, woke road Marvel and DC have taken. As we see here, Valiant Comics cuts back to one title a month. Valiant staffers are staying on, but the publishing output is slowing to a single title a month. As we see here, Valiant cancels Archer and Armstrong, cuts back to one release per month schedule. Maybe the reason for all these declining sales is perhaps because of this. Heather Antos and Lisa Hawkins promoted to senior editors at Valiant Entertainment. Now, I'm assuming you know who Heather Antos is. If you don't, she is a young woman who was given a position as an editor at Marvel, like 6-7 years ago, something like that. And under her, her books took a decidedly left-wing and sort of feminist slant to them. And then sales dropped precipitously. Eventually, after getting into online spats with several fans and causing a lot of controversy, she left Marvel and then got a job with an online gambling company or something. She was there for, I don't know, a year and a half. Then she left there and came to Valiant, became an editor there, then was eventually, as we see here, promoted to senior editor. She was at Valiant for a while, then she left Valiant, now she's currently an editor at IDW. Now, I'm not saying this is all on her, certainly, but I think that she is indicative of the situation that the comic industry is currently in. So clearly this is hitting small publishers harder than DC or Marvel, probably because they are owned by huge corporations that are worth billions of dollars. And who's going to be the next to start laying off personnel? Dark Horse, IDW, Image maybe? I don't know. What I do know is that companies don't do this if sales are good. They're not stripping their personnel down to the bare bones. They're not cutting their publishing schedule down to one comic a month if sales are good. But I do know one thing. This is largely self-inflicted. Comic publishers could have tried making comics that fans want to read, but instead they've gone after this imaginary audience of woke / feminist / trans / whatever comic fans that doesn't exist, and now they're paying the price. So, please do like this video before you leave, and please sub to the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching.